I have a feeling that the entire talk tonight is just going to be us laughing for like an hour. We're just going to be like, Welcome to Class Act Chats, where we talk making life for you and your cats easier. Today's guest is Meg Spires, a psychotherapist and one of my favorite people on the entire planet. We're talking ADHD and cats. How can you better care for your cat if you have ADHD? Or honestly, even if you don't, a lot of these tips will be helpful for everyone. As a quick disclaimer, this is for general educational purposes only and meant to help you figure out ways to make your life easier with your cat. None of this is medical advice, and none of this should be interpreted as diagnosing or recommending specific treatments for a medical condition. If you have specific questions or if you are in crisis, you should reach out to an individual medical provider who will be able to provide you with individual advice. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk cats. Meg, welcome to Class Act Chats. I am so excited to have you here and to talk to you about ADHD.
I am so excited to be here, Joey. We're reunited and on such a great topic.
I think ADHD is such an underappreciated thing. I was reading a Reddit post the other day that was someone looking for like a cleaner for a friend with ADHD that were like, you know, they have a lot of trouble like just doing basic things, getting started, blah, 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 things that are basic ADHD symptoms. And oh my God, the comments were just people being like, why are they so lazy? And like, why can't they do that? They need to own it. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, y'all, they can't. That's part of the problem with ADHD. The problem with it is that those types of things are really hard. It would be like if someone like had their arm cut off and you were to be like, why can't you hold your ice cream cone? And it's like, I'm missing an arm.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so invisible and really, really misunderstood. And I think for a lot of people, that kind of misunderstanding in the broader community is part of what leads to so much shame and people not getting the help that they need, right? Or not wanting to accommodate and adapt things that may look different, but still get things done. And I think that's such a barrier, like you and I have talked about too. I think the interesting thing is when we do supports for people with ADHD, there's a lot of things that actually are helpful for all kinds of folks. They may be especially helpful for people with ADHD, but they're also things that a lot of people who own and love cats would be able to benefit from too. You know, there could be some of these where maybe someone doesn't need all of the tips or tricks, but there might be a few where they're like, hey, that's actually great for me too, even if I don't have ADHD.
It can almost in some ways work better for neuroboring people, which is what I like to call people who do not have ADHD or autism. Like neuroboring is my new term that I'm using. We're going to take things back.
I love that.
Throw it right back.
That's a new one. Did you coin that yourself or did you borrow that?
I did. Weirdly enough, my ADHD came out and was like, oh, I'm going to think of a cute phrase. What's the opposite of neurodiverse or neurodivergent? And I was like, I don't like neurotypical. I want something a little spicier. And I was like, neuroboring.
Yeah, exactly.
We're fun.
It doesn't have a twist. It just exists versus the neurospicy, the neurodivergent, the twists and turns that we have to do for our ADHD brains.
So Meg, before we dive into the meat and potatoes here, I know who you are, obviously, because I invited you on. But people watching may not know who you are. Who are you? Why should people trust you? Why are you an expert on this topic?
Yeah, so I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker, and I have been in the field now since, 2001, Joey. So it's been a real long time. I know, even longer than you realized, right? So
yeah,
with that,
that's way longer than I would have. Like I would have been like, you probably graduated a few years before I did.
Yeah, so I've been kicking it around for a really long time, and and I've really had the privilege through that work of working in medical systems, of working in a student mental health clinic, working in community mental health, nonprofit agencies, including specifically at the Autism Society of Minnesota, and then really having a therapy practice that was centered almost exclusively around work with neurodivergent people, folks who had ADHD and or were autistic. And so that's kind of the professional, capacity I bring to this. And then I think the more personal capacity is that I am also a person who has ADHD, have have many family members, have many friends. And so part of this lovely, vibrant community myself. Yeah, and I really care about, people having accommodations, supports, being themselves, finding a way to do the things they need to do, capitalizing on the strengths of how their mind works. And then I'm a cat lover, Joy. I grew up with a grandma who had about 20 cats at one point because she lived out in the middle of nowhere and just had cats upon cats upon cats. And so, I've had multiple cats over the course of my life and recently adopted a sweet baby boy.
You're a born-again cat parent.
I'm a born-again cat parent. It's been a minute.
Oh, and Enzo is such a little love bug. Is he allowed in the room that you're in right now? Will he wander through?
Yeah, we should have him make an appearance. We're having him right now is a run of his feeding time. So he's out there in his feeding frenzy state. So we'll let him kind of come down from that high.
I feel like the fun thing about working with cats and talking with people who have cats is that the cat will just randomly come in. You never know when it'll happen. I'll be like sitting here talking with a client. We get really serious and then all of a sudden Poutine's butthole will appear on the camera.
Yes.
It's like, oh, that was the wrong time for that to happen.
100%.
Obviously, we are focused on the cat care component, but one of the important things is just kind of understanding what are some of the challenges that people with ADHD might face? What are some of the things that are going to be more difficult for, well, let's be honest. I mean, I also have ADHD, which I know, surprising. What are some of the things that tend to be more challenging for someone with ADHD?
A lot of it, what it boils down to are, challenges with what we call executive functioning, right? So it's really that ability to break down tasks, stay on tasks, bring them to fruition, have the things we need gathered for tasks. So there's that component. And so some of them are what we would call inattentive symptoms. So those tend to be things like having trouble focusing on something that's right in front of us, being easily distracted by things that are going on in the room or in your mind. Joey's going to act out each thing.
This turned into charades.
If you can imagine, the kid or the adult who sits down to do something and then every minute has to get up and gather one more item they forgot to put together for the task, forgetting to do things.
I feel personally attacked right now, just so you know.
This is not due to willfulness, not wanting to do it. It's not due to not being motivated to do it, although motivation can be part of the struggle because a lot of these things are really hard. But
they're low dopamine tasks.
Yes, exactly. The tasks that just don't bring, because I think what really excites our ADHD brain are things that are novel, things that really grab our attention, things that are intriguing to us. And actually, we're really good at that. So a lot of people with ADHD, you can throw something in front of them and they can quickly pivot and tackle a new thing and do a deep dive on information. They're really excited by a new challenge. And so, in addition to the things that are, hard, there's also sort of the flip side of then what is that kind of brain really good at, right? And then the other things we can think about are some struggles with impulsivity, hyperactivity. Right? So, a lot of people who have ADHD, their bodies might always be in motion. It may be a twitching leg. It may be a readjustment. It may be, as I saw of myself in a video, that I was in a choir and I was just slowly rocking a little bit the entire time.
Just kind of shimmying.
Yeah, bodies that need to move. It can also be, especially what you might see with younger children or sometimes with adults is really an inability to sit still at all. So sometimes you might see a kid who, is getting out of their seat in the classroom because their body's I just can't do this anymore. Or the adult who sitting through a meeting is torture and they might get up and kind of stand at the back of the room because they need to just get up. Also can be feelings of restlessness, sometimes difficulty waiting our turn. We might interrupt people. A lot of times we're excited to share ideas or our brain is working so fast that we kind of fill in what the person is likely to say and just kind of cut them off and say the thing. It can be high emotional reactivity too. We can have strong first reactions, sensitive to rejection. As with all things, if you had one or two of these things, probably not an ADHD diagnosis, right? So if you're sort of, as part of listening to this, wondering if you have ADHD, you really want to get a professional evaluation of some kind ultimately. Because what ADHD really is, it's having enough of these different kinds of challenges and having them that in a way that shows up across the different spheres of your life. So if you're someone who interrupts a lot, you're probably doing that both in friendships and maybe at work meetings, and it probably showed up in school. If you're somebody who has trouble organizing yourself, again, that might be with pet care tasks, as we'll talk about, probably also at work and maybe with chores. So it's really something that is pervasive and kind of goes with us across a lifetime, right? We don't grow out of ADHD. It might look different as we get older. So what I look like as a little kid with ADHD is going to be different than what I look like as a professional adult who has ADHD, but it is still there. And sometimes too, these things aren't obvious. We hear this notion of masking. A lot of people with ADHD may be really invisibly struggling with these challenges, in part because, again, people sometimes shame people with ADHD. It can be really embarrassing to be someone who in some ways really has your stuff together, but you're constantly misplacing and losing things, which is one of the things I did not mention, but that also comes up. So it's...
Did you forget, did you demonstrate one of the symptoms of ADHD?
Exactly. Forgetting to list out a symptom. Yeah, it really, it's hard. And so I think it's also something that, can be underappreciated how big the struggle is. I know when I was doing a lot of therapy with people with ADHD, it was really interesting to kind of talk to them about that's actually really normal. It's a part of ADHD, and it sounds like it's kind of a struggle maybe you underappreciated that you were going through. And they're like, yeah, actually, I've learned this or that way to cover it up or work around it, but it is hard.
That's really interesting that you bring that up. I think as a society, we have this attitude of you have to try and fix it and become again, neuroboring and, function like a neuroboring person. When really in a lot of cases, if you can adapt things for yourself, and especially with cat care stuff, there's a lot of things that you can do to make it so that you can set yourself up for success that doesn't involve trying to work against your brain, where you're working with it and you're trying to do things in a way that allow your brain to function as it does, and your cat still gets taken care of, or your homework still gets done, or your boss isn't coming in screaming at you because you forgot to, turn in the sales report, or what. I don't know why I'm assuming everyone with ADHD is a salesperson. You're a surgeon and you forgot a scalpel in someone's intestine for the 4th time this month. I don't know. Whatever it is that you do. So clearly there's a lot of things that people with ADHD can struggle with. And Meg, as someone who also has ADHD, is there anything that you have found challenging that your ADHD has made a little bit more you're like, oh crap, I forgot to feed him for 3 days, or you forgot to, I don't know, scoop his litter box, and you're like, man, why does it smell like cat poop in here? And there's a literal mountain of cat poop.
Yeah, I think for sure, some of the things that I've noticed is kind of figuring out how to best do those routine tasks, right? Because if you think about routine tasks, the challenges that can go against it in pet care are, again, things like being forgetful, things like not having all the supplies you need on hand, not kind of thinking ahead for all of that, difficulty sort of staying on the task, getting distracted from what you meant to do, and even just kind of that avoidance of things that take a lot of effort. Just recently, I've noticed that, my husband keeps being like, we need to clip this cat's claws. And I'm really worried about it. And so I keep being like, well, it's this day we should do it, or this thing has to be in place, or, and what I'm really doing is I'm kicking the can down the road because I know it's going to be a lot of effort and it might be stressful. And so my brain is just let's not. That's a lot to figure out, who's holding the cat, what are we using, how are we making sure it goes right, what do we do if he starts freaking out? And my brain's like, nah, let's just do that later.
And then later becomes, oh, it's been like 6 months. Oops.
Exactly. I think sometimes the analysis paralysis. So with ADHD, we can be really good about collecting a lot of information. And certainly in caring for your pet, there's like a million and one opinions and sources of information. And so sometimes, like when you're trying to make a decision, you can actually stay too long in the wheels turning phase of things. Everything from like, how do I feed my cat? What are the best toys? What is the best feeding schedule? What's the best way to do the litter box? I mean, all the things. And then kind of alongside that, I think that a lot of people with ADHD struggle with overbuying because like sometimes purchasing items and getting things is like exciting. It's like interesting to research what to get, and it can be like a little dopamine rush to like get the new things and try them out. And so I love Joey's expressions.
I wish you would stop talking about me because it's getting really personal here.
Left and right. This is just all about you, man. I'm just poking.
I have a new Thanksgiving toy for my cats that we're going to be opening later, and I keep being like, oh, they need Easter toys too. Oh, we definitely need some more St. Patrick's Day toys because they only have a few. Like, God forbid, like we play with the same old St. Patrick's Day toys from last year that I only bring out in like the spring. It's
Yes. And obviously there's like a part of that's like being like a really good, pet owner, right? Like giving our cats some variety and making sure that they have enough enrichment. And then there's a part of it that can sometimes be too much, right? Like really, like maybe that was a lot of spending this month that I didn't really budget for. Or maybe like I realized I just sort of over purchased. Like there were so many new things that it was more than they could even really engage with. And so I think sometimes, looking at, are we sort of impulsively, buying, getting hyper focused on it and sort of ended up, getting more than we really need. The other thing I think about is, having cats is often like a really emotional endeavor. They bring us so much joy and like contentment and peace. And then they're like, can be ripping up and destroying things or batting at us or biting us, or they don't want to be pet, they don't want to be held, they're just not, they're not sort of engaging in the way that we expect, right? And I think with ADHD, Poutine is
looking up at me, and I'm like, oh, Poutine, are you gonna demonstrate some of what Meg's talking about?
Yeah. For anybody who has a cat, like those things can be trying and stressful, but I think for ADHD brains in particular, we can have stronger first reactions. We can be more impatient and more impulsive in our responses. We can also have rejection sensitivity, which can also come up with our pets. We as much as we also want to love our pets, we usually want to be loved in return. And sometimes it can feel more personal than it really is when our cats behave in certain ways or don't seem to want to engage with us in certain ways.
I love that you brought up the emotional reactivity, because that is something I think a lot of people forget about. And that can lead to people making choices that are objectively going to potentially encourage the behavior that they don't want. I always admit I am the worst at this, where if, for example, Poutine or whoever, we're not going to personally attack Poutine here, but whoever wakes me up in the middle of the night, I tell people all the time, I'm like, you want to be careful about, don't reinforce the cat, don't get up and feed them. If they are doing it regularly, you don't want to just ignore it. There's a little bit more to that than just, ignoring the behavior. I am the worst at being like, Poutine, I'm trying to sleep. And I'm like sitting there trying to like logic and reason with him because it's the middle of the night. My brain is not at all fully functional. And so my first thought is, I'm going to sit here and try and reason with my cat, who just has no idea what I'm saying, other than he's like, you're giving me attention. I love this. Let's think of an example of something a cat might be doing here and how, someone with ADHD may respond emotionally, and what could one do instead that would maybe be a little bit more productive, not just for them, but for their cat and would work with their cat. We can't really expect the cats to adapt to us. And so we have to kind of work with their behavior. And again, a lot of these working with the cats' behavior can absolutely be adapted to people people with ADHD.
Yeah, some of the things that come to my mind would be like cats sharpening their claws on things that we don't want them to sharpen their claws on, digging up plants, chewing on plants, knocking things down. You can have the situation where you're petting a cat and they might swat at you. They might try to bite you. There's all these examples of, a cat just behaving in a way that doesn't work out with what we want, whether that's we want to have a certain kind of interaction with our cat, or we don't want certain items being destroyed or damaged, or we're sort of feeling like a cat is turning against us, right? If they're getting upset. But one of the things I think of and what I love about what you do, Joey, is the first thing I think of is really educating ourselves about cat behavior.
Yep.
Because here's the thing is like, I will say even this time around, like it's been a while since I had a cat, and I'm sort of like learning even more than I did with previous cats. And I think just by taking time and reading more about cat behavior and really understanding sort of their body cues and like what might set off different kinds of behaviors, that in and of itself can reduce the likelihood that you are going to make an impulsive decision to respond in a way that either reinforces the behavior, is harmful to your cat, and it really allows you to like slow down and have more context. So I think that's like, to me, the starting point is like read Joey's blog, read books, talk to your vet.
Hang on. My award-winning blog. I just have to like.
Yes.
It did win 2 awards, and I will forever annoy everyone who ever has to talk to me about it. It is to be referred to as my award-winning blog because I'm really proud of it. I put a lot of work into it.
And this is very sincere. Like I gave you this feedback. Like your blog really is helpful. Like it's got so many different topics on it, and I'm not even just saying this because we're friends and former colleagues. Like I really genuinely. It was instructive, and it did set me up, I think, for more success than what I even had the last time I had cats, just because of that context, it really, and I like that you have resources there. It also refers out to additional resources. Like it's just a wealth of knowledge, and that's not, again, just a plug, like that's a genuine user experience.
I'm glad to hear that because, it's a lot of work to maintain. Granted, I actually do kind of one of the things I think you've hinted at where I kind of lean into my hyper focus sometimes. There's been times where I will be like, I am lasered in on writing a blog right now. And I lean into that. I love the idea of just educating yourself because that really can help be like an off-ramp of the highway of rage where even if you love your cat, you can become very annoyed with them, especially if they're doing things that don't quite jive with your ADHD.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I do want to normalize and validate, like there's no wrong emotions. It's really just what you do with them. Right. So like, it's okay to get annoyed with your cat. It's okay to get mad. It's not a personal moral failing to understandably get annoyed or upset by a lot of these things. It's really just like, how do we channel that? Right. So like, instead of, screaming at our cat, which then sometimes can provoke more aggression, more like kind of getting overstimulation, and doesn't actually tell them what they should do instead because they don't understand. They don't have.
It would be like if I screamed at you in Japanese.
Exactly. So I think, so definitely ground yourself in the understanding. And then I think another thing actually that Joey and I were talking about earlier that you can do is sort of as you're redirecting your cat and deciding on the next step, a lot of people with ADHD process well verbally and even sometimes with like self-talk. And you can even sort of do this as like self-talk with you and your cat together. And what I mean by that is, let's say your cat, I'm going to use the example that just happened earlier today, which was Enzo decided to suddenly leap on a plant and dump it over and get dirt. It was a room we had just cleaned yesterday. Dirt was everywhere. I know, outrageous. How dare he?
And so, no, Meg, I don't know. I don't know if I believe you because that sweet face could do no wrong.
It's true. He is so innocent. I'm sure it was actually something else. It was a poltergeist. It was.
He was a ghost.
But, and so some of what I might do with a scenario like that, right? Instead of yelling at the cat, getting right at him, which might be my ADHD brain inside might have felt like that. Instead what I'll do is kind of a self-talk where I'll be like, Enzo, I know that is not your intention to destroy that plant. I really don't love the dirt on the floor. Let's find you something else to do, right? Let's redirect that energy. Let's move it along. The other thing I think about is sometimes if your cat did something that really got you in the red zone, you are just really, really upset, just like we tell parents with children who are maybe doing really provoking behaviors, you might need to put yourself in a timeout. You may need to walk away and close the door and just sit down and breathe for a minute, text a friend, do whatever you need to do to just get your brain out of the red zone. If you can't think straight and your whole body is really agitated, that's a cue sometimes. Just if we watch our cats and they're wigging out, their tail is flip-flopping everywhere and their ears are back and they're starting to swat and get themselves big, right? Then that's sometimes our cue of whoa, give this cat space. Do not approach. Do not try to pick them up. Do not touch them. They're in the red zone too, right? But we also need to know when we're in the red zone. And then really having in your pocket, the most common types of things as you learn your cat, right? You're going to learn the behaviors that they do repeatedly that you don't like. You're going to learn their patterns. And so really you want to take time when you're calm to develop what are your strategies. Read up on, okay, if my cat is doing this, what are some good sources of information of how do I, work with a cat who's biting me sometimes? Or how do I work with a cat who's sharpening their claws on things I don't want them to sharpen on? What are my options? Make an informed decision ahead of time when you're not upset. And then have things on the ready to do. They're just constantly getting into things because they don't have enough things to do. They're bored.
You need to distract them with a toy like I'm doing with Poutine right now.
Yes. So think of those things when you're not upset. It's it's actually, there's a skill in therapy, comes from dialectical behavioral therapy called cope ahead.
We love DBT.
We
are
DBT.
big I feel like at my day job, well, actually, no, now I'm at the point where I mostly do cat stuff. I only do my PA work very part-time. So I guess I don't know which one to consider my day job anymore. My life is confusing. I feel like I just am constantly a shill for DBT, big DBT, where I'm go to DBT, go to DBT, go to DBT. So we are big fans.
A lot of skills in there. And a lot of it is for emotional regulation, mindfulness, things that can really, really be helpful so that we don't, sort of end up just letting the impulsivity run riot and then sort of feel bad. Oh, I yelled at my cat. That wasn't great. That doesn't feel good. Or I just reinforced, I got it even more agitated because I'm yelling now. And now they're even more revved up, which was already part of the problem. And then just, not taking it so personally, really remembering cats are just being cats, man. They're meant to climb, they're meant to hunt, they're meant to pounce, they're curious, they're inquisitive. They're not this low maintenance pet that people believe they are, that they're just there to kind of pet when we want to and we can just feed them and change their litter every once in a while and they're fine. They are social creatures. They need things to do. They need interaction. And when they're, displeasing us, not to treat them like a human who's displeasing us and thinking that we can just, yell, why don't you please stop doing that? Not that that works with people either.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that effective with people too? Because I think of a lot of my clients that they have a neighbor that has a cat that is actively creating problems in the neighborhood. They let them outside, and I have a 0% success rate of anyone being able to reason with someone, where I have even gone so far as to offer to be listen, I will talk with your neighbor and come up with some enrichment strategies for their cat to help them transition to being indoors. It never goes well. One thing I want to add to what you said, because I think it's great, is just if you have done things like you've yelled at your cat or, anything that's, not so great, especially when you're really reactive, don't beat yourself up about that. Because I know that's something with ADHD that can be really hard or really easy to do is to beat yourself up about things that you've done because your brain just functions a little bit differently. You're not a bad person for doing that. If you are actively trying to improve and work on yourself and you're trying to make changes and you're, seeking out information to try and do better, that's great. Like, that's more than what a lot of people do. Guilt, don't know her.
Thank you for highlighting that. I do think that's really important, especially with ADHD kind of shame tendencies. I think there's a really big difference between just taking accountability for things we regret and going, I didn't like that. That wasn't my best self. And then coupling that with how am I going to move forward rather than, sort of saying, oh my gosh, like, how could I have done that? I'm such a bad person. Really thinking about like, it's a behavior, it's a response. And we're all going to have those moments of vulnerability, which actually kind of lends itself into me thinking about, there's a concept in parenting, like the good enough parent. And I think similarly with pets, it's like being a good enough pet owner, right? It's really like we don't have to do everything perfectly. We can have moments of impatience. We can forget a feeding. We can let our litter box sit too long occasionally. It doesn't mean that your cat's life is ruined and that you are like a so-called in quotes bad cat owner. It's more about in the long haul, right? Like, are there more times where you're trying to make things better and doing okay? That's really what we want to strive for. And it truly is good enough.
I can tell you as someone who spends a lot of time talking to cat behavior experts, I'm friends with a lot of cat behavior experts, like people who have dedicated their lives to cats. All of us have cats that do things that are not super desirable, and all of us do things that we're like, this is not the best choice. Or again, I already said earlier, I do think I am the worst at reinforcing behaviors I don't want with my own cats. No one is perfect with this. Even people who you would think would have like perfectly behaved cats, so people will sometimes be like, what do you mean your cats do X, Y, and Z? Aren't you a cat expert? I am. I also, like, again, I'm a human. I have cats. Part of the reason cats are so delightful is some of their quirks and some of the annoying things. I think of Poutine. He's very loud, and oh God, he is so loud. I find that to be charming, kind of. Again, don't get me wrong, when I'm trying to sleep and he's I don't love it then.
At the end of the day, it's all part of this relationship we have with these delightful animals. They're not perfect. And the other thing I think about too, like relationally, but except for Poutine and Prozac.
I would argue cats are perfect. We're the imperfect ones.
That's probably fair. They're just fine the way we are. We're the ones that are coming in and mucking it up with our expectations.
Yeah. We are the problem.
Existing. I think also if you're having a behavior that's really trying, that really is truly like you've reached your like max with it, that is where you do want to get for sure some outside help. Talk to your veterinarian, hire a cat behaviorist, really work with someone if you've reached the end of your rope and it's starting to cause like constant friction, then that's kind of that clue. Maybe this has exceeded my capacity and I need some help because I'm out of strategies and it's really diminishing my quality of life, right?
And don't be afraid to, if you're comfortable with it, disclose to whoever you're working with that you have ADHD. You don't have to go into it in super depth, but a lot of us are very willing to adapt what we're having you do based on that. There is only so much that we can do, and we wouldn't be providing like a medical treatment or anything like that. It's important that you're working with, your own individual therapist, medication clinician, whoever, to actually get some of it addressed in other ways too. If there is something where that's playing a role in it, why make it harder on yourself? Just have someone who knows what they're doing. And there's a lot of these things that people will come in and they'll be like, man, I have no idea how to do this. And I'll be like, oh yeah, that's easy. It's something I hear it all day, every day. I think about it all day, every day. There's a reason it's pretty quick for me to come up with like some of these solutions that I'll have for clients. I don't expect normal people, and I'm purposely not calling myself normal because I'm a cat weirdo. I don't expect other people to come up with that because you don't spend all day thinking about cats. Kind of like how, I don't know, Meg, you and I don't spend all day thinking about plumbing, and a plumber would be like, oh yeah, that's obviously a sign of your sump pump not working. I don't see. I don't know
pipes.
plumbing. Yeah, your pipes are not working. That's the extent
Faucet?
of my plumbing knowledge.
Yes, because that may be how we feel when we're confronted with something we cannot fix on our own. So I think definitely feeling free to disclose like what the kinds of struggles are with your ADHD, just so that like if someone comes in, whether it's a vet or cat behaviorist or anybody, and they're just sort of giving you ideas that you know aren't going to work for your brain, you know, really not to be afraid to advocate and say, unfortunately, I've tried that and that just doesn't work for me. So do you have any other creative ideas for how to tackle that? Which actually makes me think about, another really big topic that I think is a common struggle are all these routine tasks of pet care, right? So we need to feed the kitty cat. We need to change the kitty cat's litter box. We need to scoop the poop and at some point replace the whole thing. We need to groom them, especially depending on, what kind of kitty cat we might have. We need to order their supplies. We need to shop for them.
I'm getting exhausted even just hearing this list of things. Like, sometimes you don't think about all the things that you have to do to keep these sweet, precious angel babies alive.
Mm-hmm. It's really true. So it's a lot. And for people that struggle with tasks in varying ways, all of those can be a challenge. Particular ones of those could be a challenge. You might be someone that one or two of those is like, I got that down. My system's cool. No worries. And then one of them is just your Achilles heel or whatever, where it's just every time it's a struggle. A few things we can think about to try to set ourselves up for more success with these tasks. One is breaking it down more deliberately into what are the smaller components. So ADHD brains tend to think of a thing and it sounds really overwhelming because our brains don't automatically kind of boil it down into what are the actual components of that task and how long does it take, really? Like, I don't know about everybody else's brain, but a lot of people with ADHD have this time blindness thing where either your brain makes you think something's going to take like 35 years. That's actually when you sit down and do it, it's going to take 2 minutes. Or may feel like you have no time in your day, in quotes, when actually if you sat down and wrote down what you need to do, you have something like 6 hours. These are just things that like our brains may not do well because of ADHD. And so what I mean by breaking things down would be, let's say it's a morning where feeding your cat just sounds like insurmountable. What you might do is think about, okay, what are the actual like little micro steps in this task, just so I can lay out a roadmap for myself. And the first one may literally be pull back my covers. And the next one may be stand on the ground. And the next one may be go into the room, take out the scoop, and so on. So you might literally break it down for yourself in kind of a walkthrough of the micro tasks. And then what you can do is literally only commit to one task, subtask at a time. So if it's a real bad morning, you might say, you know what? I'm just going to commit to, I'm going to pull this comforter back.
You're just like, nope.
I'm just going to do step one and so on. So you might kind of do like just focus in on this one piece and sort of piece it out. So instead of thinking about, I have to feed the cat, which is this nebulous, it sounds really arduous, I don't really want to do it at all. I'm going to break it down into little pieces. Another thing you can do is just as much as you can pre-set yourself up to remove obstacles. So what I mean by that is even making things, are the things you need to do said task as close as possible to the location where you're going to do the task. Because again, if you're someone with like ADHD brain, you're like, you keep your scoop over here and your food is over here and where you actually feed your cat is over here, you're going to immediately, it's a lot more work.
Yeah, like the scoop is across the room and it's like, oh my God, it's like going to Narnia or something to scoop.
It is. That's exactly. Going to Narnia is how things feel. It really is. And so, kind of setting the stage for yourself so that you have everything readily accessible, stored as close as you can to the location where you're actually going to do the task. Having the tools you need to make it easy, like a dedicated food scoop so that you're not like running out of scoop and you're using it also for this and that and now you can't find it. I mean, it sounds like a small thing, but it is very real and it becomes an added obstacle. The other thing is that, if your budget allows, you can also get tools that just make these tasks easier. There's a big whole industry out there where people have created items to make things easier for those of us who are doing these kitty cat tasks. And so whether that's, some people use automatic feeders, and if that is something that is just
feeders.
Yes, if that's going to make your life a jillion times easier and take a task burden off, and now you've got more energy and freedom to play with your cat, to do other things. If you can, try to talk yourself through, like, I shouldn't need that, or that's wrong, or that's bad. There is no wrong or bad. Right? Like, we can take care of cats in all different ways and they can have healthy, good lives. Or I know for me, like, I really struggle with the litter box. I have really major sensory issues. It's really hard for me not to gag. I sometimes have to physically plug my nose to do it. And so I got this great thing called the Litter Genie because it's just right there.
Oh,
scoop it so fast.
Favorite litter box product. Like,
yeah.
I know people sometimes who are neurodivergent, they sometimes have sensory issues. Don't be afraid if you really need to, like, keep a mask nearby. Do what you need to do.
Exactly.
And the Litter Genie. I'm not kidding. I tell everyone about it. It is my favorite litter box product.
Tool. Yeah, no, it's really great, or like kind of make your own similar thing. There's ways you can kind of like find hacks that are a similar idea, but really the idea behind the Litter Genie is just, it's right there. You have your scoop, you have a way to like put the poop away and the scoops, the clumps, and like immediately funnel into something where it's shut and doesn't smell as much. And so it's just an example of like that feeling of burden of like, I need to mess around and like I've got a little waste basket that's over here and there and you're getting litter all over the place. It's like
you're running around with poop, like,
yeah,
and then you trip and there's poop everywhere.
It's like one of those really hokey like infomercials where the person's like, and they're like throwing poop.
I've fallen and now there's poop in my salad.
Do things that make it a little bit easier. If you are someone who, struggles to remember to get the supplies, right? Like you have it in your brain, oh shoot, I'm low on cat food. And then all of a sudden you're on that day and you have none. And if you have it in your budget and you can find a source that you like, you might do a delivery option where something is sort of automatically sent out every so often. That again is like a burden removed for your brain. Because that in of itself, like remembering to ordering on time, having the budget for it, all those things are little subtasks. And if you can just have it baked into a budget where you're not even thinking about it, you figure out the cadence of it needs to come every month or every 2 months or whatever you want.
A lot of places, they're really motivated to have you do auto ship because it benefits them as a company. So it benefits your brain and them. So they'll typically give you like a little bit off, or there'll be some like extra perk for auto ship too. So
that's a really good point. That's a really good point. You're right. And you can, sort of select a store that you like. It's another way to just, again, remove some obstacles. And then I also think of like in a scheduling rate, we can't completely, cats are going to have sort of their own internal clock too, but we can't influence like how we schedule things. I know for myself, I'm a late riser and it would be torture if I was trying to get up and feed my cat, even at 7 o'clock. I know for some people that's easy peasy. For me, that sounds like
monsters.
4 a.m. Yeah, monsters.
Yeah, like no.
Yeah. So for me, that's the middle of the night. What I really did over time as I was getting Enzo, my cat, acclimated to our household is I really targeted, I'm going to do best with an 8 o'clock start, and so that's what I kind of moved everything toward. I kind of gave him time to adjust and kind of set up when else he needed to be fed so that it wasn't too long between. So the other thing is, working with your natural clock when you can and sort of trying to, again, make the schedule work for you and your lifestyle, whether that's you need the automatic feeder because maybe you're not around at a certain point, but you think that's a good time for your cat to get part of their meal. And the other thing that I've noticed is like for me who has trouble getting up in the morning, it actually makes it easier. Like I actually find that I'm much more apt to just completely get out of bed versus in the past, there was a lot more hitting snooze. So sometimes too, you can sort of build in, things that are good, exciting, pleasant as motivators to couple up. So like for me, yeah, getting out of bed might be hard. I'm going to couple it up with I do like feeding my cat and knowing that he's okay and I'm being responsible for him.
Now, Meg, have you trained Enzo to make coffee for you in the morning yet?
Oh my gosh, Joey, why haven't I?
To me, like, coffee is reinforcing. If you were to clicker train me with something, coffee would absolutely, like, I get like a little sip of coffee, it would totally work.
I love the idea, like, I'm picturing your boys, like, doing, like, they're both baristaing for you. Like, one of them is managing, like, the steam milk, and the other one is...
The other one's like brewing coffee.
One of them does the art, drags their little claws.
You know what they would do for the art? They would write like more churu.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Has Enzo discovered the magic of churu yet?
No. He has not.
Meg. Okay, I know we said earlier there's no such thing as a bad cat parent, but I'm sorry, Meg.
Now you're doubting.
Now I'm doubting this. Enzo needs a churu.
Is that the squirty food, or is that something else?
The Go-Gurts that are...
Okay.
Oh, wait. What are we talking about? I have a desk churu right nearby.
Yes.
These little tubes. Oh...
Okay, I'll have to
you can
try
get a
it.
cat
He's
to
very
do
food motivated, so I'm quite sure he'll enjoy it. He eats bread, so I can't imagine he wouldn't love a churro. He stole part of a sandwich out of my son's hand.
No offense to your son, but like if he wasn't prepared to protect his sandwich, then I can't
It's
say
fair
that
game.
Enzo didn't deserve it. Because if you think about it, we like to think, oh, this is my sandwich, but really it's the cat's sandwich, and they are letting us eat it. Is an act of kindness. Meg, I actually want to spin off of that a little bit because I think of like clicker training for cats where it's fun, it's exciting, the cats are having a good time, the cat is being reinforced for a behavior and they're just enjoying it. Is there a way to make things more fun? Is there a way that we can lean into the dopamine and be like, pew, you get a little squirt of dopamine without don't take a syringe of dopamine and inject it to your brain. That's a really bad idea.
Don't.
Please don't do that. That's a terrible idea. Can you make scooping the litter box fun? That might be a big ask, but
really. Okay, so here's what I thought of, because I was thinking of this the other day. What I tried to do one time recently is like, okay, it's real gross, and I try to not think about it as what it really was, but I was like, can I find all the things? It's like a kind of like a hide and seek. Like, can I find all the clumps? And I'm just gonna try really hard not to think what these clumps are. I'm just gonna see how quickly I can do it, right? So like sometimes we can do things like we can set like little time tasks, like how quickly can I get this weird gross chore done. I think sometimes just doubling things up with something pleasant at the end that you only get for that experience. If you are someone who doesn't enjoy, let's say, clipping your cat's nails, like the example I gave earlier, maybe each month when you do that, you give yourself a special treat of some kind, whether that's like a special food thing that you don't eat every day, or whether that's you're going to watch like a really fun show, like a comfort show, but like kind of the idea of like, here's a thing that's very much paired with kind of an unpleasant experience, but I'm making it fun by tying something that I really do like to it, or maybe it's like after you do like this kind of task that you find kind of cumbersome and annoying with your pet, then right after that, that's when you have playtime that you like to do with them, or you have some snug time, right? Now we're going to go and have our snug on the couch moment, and the other thing I do think about, this is something I saw a lot in just general therapy with folks of ADHD, is not to be afraid to change the system just for the purpose of changing the system. So if you're someone who for a while reminders on your phone worked, and then after a while your brain's like, meh, over it, don't care, maybe you switch to a paper planner, because you know what? For the moment in time, that is novel and it's going to work for a few months. It's not going to work forever, but it's a novelty of I'm changing up my system. And so sometimes that can get your brain out of the rut. You could sometimes just do it differently. Literally just do it differently. Like do an automatic feeder for a while if you're not. Change the time slightly or couple it up with a new thing. It's just think of that idea of difference. And then again, don't be ashamed or worry when it stops working, because it will stop working.
It's normal. It's kind of like with cats where they will get bored with toys and be like, I'm not into this after, a week or so. That's a very normal thing for cats. It's very expected, and they're not doing anything wrong. And it's part of why we suggest rotating out toys or getting like different toys for your cats. Copy paste that concept to yourself. There's nothing wrong with switching up the system or trying something different. Just be careful with certain things. You don't want to willy-nilly switch up litter boxes or litters, because that's how I get a lot of clients that way, where they're like, oh, I was targeted by an Instagram ad, and it's just terribly designed, not at all with cats in mind.
You might do things in a way that feels sort of like it's not how you're, in quotes, supposed to do it, and throw that out as much as you can. Like a perfect example
trash.
I think of, just trash. Like one of the things
Scoop it into the litter, Jeannie, because it's a piece of crap.
That's right. Then shut the door and never think about it again. As an example, if you watch someone with ADHD do like a big project, they might be doing like 5 different things in unfinished phases, right? So they're kind of flitting from this part to that part to that part. Like maybe they're trying to clean their house, and you'd watch them and it looks just wild. They were dusting, but then now they went over there and started washing the window. Oh, wait, but now they're doing laundry. Oh, wait, but now they're scrubbing the toilet. Like, what are they doing? At the end, that person might get all that done, and who cares? It doesn't matter that it doesn't look right or that it looks like scattered, because that is maybe how your brain needs to do it. And so maybe you need to flit a little bit from thing to thing, and that's okay.
Meg, actually solving one of the things that you mentioned earlier with Enzo, with nail clipping, a lot of people are like, I have to clip all of my cat's nails at once. Like I have to get them all. It's either I clip them all or they instantly regrow. And I'm here to tell you that is not what fun fact, your cat's nails will not instantly regrow if you don't clip them all at once. And there's no reason you can't just do one nail or one paw if that's doable for you. I basically just continuously clip my cat's nails, where I'm just like clip, I'll do like one and it's not a big deal. Or with like litter box scooping, if I walk by and I'm like, oh, look, there's some poop in there, I just scoop it right then and there, because otherwise it will build up and I'll be like,
And you know what's wild about that, Joy, is I never considered that option. That's what I mean. It's like, right? Like, it's just, it never, right? I mean, that sounds like, of course, would have never thought of it. Not in a million years. So yeah, I think sometimes it's just getting out of these really fixed mindsets of here's how we do this task.
Yeah. And there's stuff like that too, that it actually does benefit the cats. Like playing with your cats, people often will be like, oh, I need to do a power play session with their cat. And playing is supposed to be imitating hunting for cats. That's what you're trying to do. And so cats actually prefer really short bursts of play, 5 to 15 minute play session a couple times a day. While you're doing something else, you can sit there and watch TV. Or if you're like making dinner, you're boiling some water or something, go play with your cat while your dinner's cooking or waiting for the water to boil. I actually think clicker training is really great for people with ADHD, because it's very satisfying. Like once you get the hang of it, and once you start seeing your cat actually doing the behaviors you're working on, and again, you do it in short bursts, you get a little bit of dopamine, the cat gets a little bit of dopamine. Again, dopamine for everyone.
I love that, Joey, because especially, for some people just don't enjoy like playing as much. Like it's harder for them again, because it's like, it might feel boring. It might feel like, why am I doing this? I don't want to do this. I know it's good for my cat, but it's not fun for me. If that's kind of how you feel about it, finding the things that like just, it's a little short burst, or being creative and looking up enrichment ideas. And there might be something in there that does sound fun and silly to you.
I think we're kind of talking about like unintentionally, but like find things about what you're doing with your cat that are like rewarding for you. Think about like, okay, is there part of this that I enjoy? I know we are both fans of gamifying things because we've played Pokemon Go together.
Yep. Also a great ADHD game.
The number of times back when Meg and I worked together that we have a fabulous former colleague named Evan, that Evan and I would create whimsy, and we'd be like, we've got to go over here, and people would be like, you're going to catch a Pokemon, aren't you? And we'd be like, no, we are professionals. Obviously not. That's not happening.
One more topic just to touch on a little bit would be that analysis paralysis, right? Or sometimes like kind of, I guess we can kind of couple up over overconsumption too, right? Like we don't know what to get, we get it all, like we're just kind of all over the place with choices and decision making. This can lend itself to like what toys to buy or how to feed or how do we approach behavior problems. And again, just kind of thinking about like learning how to live with your cat as a marathon, not a sprint. And so really just slowing down, gathering information, you know, maybe if you're struggling with buying too many things, taking the exercise of like maybe putting it in a cart, but not buying the same day, coming back the next day. You know, thinking about other things that you can get on something like a marketplace that's like free items or low cost items. One thing is the cats is like figuring out what kinds of toys they like. Not all cats like all the same kinds of toys. And so rather than overbuying like a million of all kinds of toys that your cat isn't going to like, maybe you try a couple of varieties, or if you have people that have cats and they can give you ideas or share an item to try, slowing down on some of that. And again, not feeling like you have to be this perfect cat owner that gives your cat every single thing under the sun, but just like, do we have the basic needs covered? If I'm, you know, there's the which one is that? I can't tell.
This is Poutine. He's been kind of like circling around.
Yeah. Oh, like, there's his beautiful face.
Like, Poutine, are you gonna come say hello? Hello.
He's Poutine. So handsome. Handsome boy. Yeah, and then again, just thinking of like trusted source of information, finding the places that you feel like you can go if you are sort of overwhelmed. I mean, you can go into like 10,000 Reddit threads and like read everybody's opinions about how to do everything for cats, or, you know, you can pare it down and think, where are some sources of like trusted information for me that I feel safe and comfortable going to if I'm overwhelmed by like all the different ideas out there.
I'm gonna build upon that, because one other thing to be just cautious of and be aware of, because ADHD and how it works, where we tend to like shiny objects. Be careful with influencers. Just because something is easy or seems quick, or it can be really easy to be drawn into bad advice because you're like, oh, this seems really simple, when it's like, well, that may not actually be true, or it may be a product that claims to be good, but there's actually a lot of problems with it. Something that's packaged in a really flashy way, you're going to be dazzled by it, and your ADHD is going to be like, we want that. And like, ooh, this solves a problem, add to cart. People will make these really flashy videos, or they'll look really well done. But man, the advice I see is just, it's very frustrating to me, because people are just out there seeking advice to help their cats and make their lives easier, their cats' lives easier. And it's not good advice. Just because someone makes a pretty video about it doesn't mean that it's good. You have to kind of keep yourself a little bit in check, because otherwise you will run into problems. Ask me how I know that.
I'm not through personal experience, I'm sure.
Never.
I do think, you know, obviously everybody's brains are vulnerable to social media, but I think like, you know, neurodivergent brains in particular can be extra vulnerable, like just because things are really targeted. It's fast and it's dopamine. And so it's like, you know, we know we spend too much time on there if we're not really careful. But then, you know, to Joey's point too, like that hard sell, if you're impulsive at a given moment, you're more likely to just follow through and quickly click and buy before you've barely even thought about it and gone, oh, like, was I really a discerning consumer there? Probably not. Because it's like, and you know, we do it at like 1 o'clock in the morning, or you know, it's like a time of vulnerability.
Meg, this is getting, again, I'd like to remind you, this is not meant to be about me. This is becoming personal.
I'll take it down. I'm so sorry, Joey.
Yeah, geez, I wish you would not talk about me as much.
Little did you know I was just coming on here to.
This is the personally attacking Joey hour.
That's what the episode is called, just personal attacks on Joey.
Meg personally attacks Joey and all of his impulse purchases that occur at 3 a.m.
No shame if you fall prey to it. Again, moments of vulnerability. We've all made purchases we regret, some of us more than others. That's okay. But all we're going to do is just try to be more mindful, right? Try to catch yourself in the moment, set yourself up for success. Don't be afraid to return things. You know, there's ways we can sort of mitigate some of those moments and just move on from them.
I see so many people who they're like, I don't feel like I'm, a good cat parent because of my ADHD. You're doing the best that you can. Like, end of the day is you are doing the best you can. A lot of these things are a struggle, and it doesn't mean that you don't love your cat. It doesn't mean that you're a bad cat parent. There are things that you can do to try and improve, and just pick something small. And like we talked about earlier with the breaking things down into teeny steps, pick something small to start with and start there. Go get a litter genie, or commit to like a 5-minute play session with your cat, or even just like commit to getting out a toy and see like, do I still feel like playing? Okay, I don't. Okay, I'll put the toy back. Start there. You can have ADHD and you can take care of your cat and give them a great life, and a life filled with love and fun. You don't have to feel guilty about, not being able to do things in the neuroboring way that society has decided is the only way that things should be done. Not that I have opinions on this or anything.
Neither of us do. We're just kind of
Neither of us do.
Neutral, just whatever.
Neutral, very neutral. Now, Meg, I have a final question for you, and it's the most important question of the evening. Everything before this pales in comparison to our final question here. Are you more of a poutine or are you more of a Prozac? And we're not saying which one do you prefer, because that's not possible. We're just thinking like, which one do you relate to more and why?
I feel like I am more of a poutine. I think I need a minute, and I think I get there, but I think I need a minute.
That's very like how Poutine is. He's very like adaptable to different situations, but he takes a little bit of time to be like, okay, what is this? This is new. Oh, okay, we're good.
I resonate with that. Can I show Enzo?
Yes, I'm excited to meet Enzo.
My handsome boy. We're gonna have treats will help too. You wanna come here and have a treat?
Treats, the solution to everything. Hello, Enzo. Yeah, you are beautiful.
He is a very long, very white kitty boy, but then he's got, and I don't know if we'll be able to see it because he's already off camera, but he's got just a little bit of a tabby stripe on his tail. And he's so, so cute, and we love him so, so much. But he does have trying behaviors. We are learning how to work with our boy. But yeah, he's really fun, and he's really sweet.
He's worth it.
Very lucky. Yes, he is 100% worth all the time. And he's so snuggly. We don't know a lot about him. His family surrendered him. He's about 2 years old. I saw his profile online, and I just dug his little picture. I was like, I just dig the looks of this cat, and I went to the cat Cafe Meow locally here and walked in the room, and he was right on the cat tree, and he jumped on my back the second I walked up to him.
Oops, I've already filled out an adoption application.
It was the same day. He grabbed my heart. He's a really special dude. I just think, animals in general and cats specifically bring so much to our lives. I think they help us be more mindful and in the moment, and just appreciate like the fun and silly and sweet little times that, pass by quickly, but that are so special and connecting. And so, yeah, I'm really, really grateful to have him, and grateful to be here with you and getting to talk about this super fun topic. So thank you, Joey, for thinking of this topic and for giving me the opportunity to collaborate with you. It's been really, really fun.
Thank you, because I really appreciate you sharing your expertise and your insights on this, because a lot of people get stuck. I mean, I've fallen victim to the societal shame where I'm like, oh man, my ADHD is something that I'm like, I can't use it as an excuse. And yes, actually I can. It's something where it's like, yeah, this is just harder for me. I'm still doing my best, and it's not like I'm not trying. And I think there's a idea of like, yeah, it's an excuse. That means you're not accountable. No. It just means that we have to adapt things, and you're still accountable. It's just you can be accountable within what you can do. I wish that there was more understanding about like, okay, let's find solutions that work with ADHD rather than trying to take a star-shaped peg and shove it into a hexagonal hole or whatever, like whatever shaped hole, different shaped holes. That's the point.
Yes. I agree
I
completely. It is because I think it's like, like we talked about earlier, it's really working with those differences and kind of scaffolding the things that are harder and capitalizing on the things that are easier. There's a lot of us out there. I always used to say in therapy, it's one kind of normal. It's a smaller percentage kind of normal. So we sometimes get overlooked and we don't always, like a lot of the mainstream processes, ideas out there are built for just that larger percentage. But there are a lot of us.
We can kind of sniff each other out typically, where like sometimes I'll meet someone and I'll be like, this is a bit too familiar. Are you? And
your antenna go up. Beep, beep,
yeah, it's like beep, ping, ping, ping. We find each other.
100%.
This has been great. I learned a lot. I feel like I always learn so much when I talk with you, and you have such great insights. And I'm just so grateful that you took time out of your day to come and talk with me. And I am especially grateful for Enzo. Thank you, Enzo. I think that our task now, well, okay. And Meg, your task now that we're done is I need you to go get some churro for Enzo.
I will. I promise. I will follow through.
Good. Good.